The HP ALM key strategies and benefits. So for today's agenda, once we get started here a little bit more smooth, to be honest with you, we've actually been going through a major move. We're moving into a 7,770 square foot facility. So it's got us a little bit off center today. I don't know about most of you, but I think I would rather have a root canal rather than do a move. But I apologize for the rough start here. But I absolutely guarantee you that there's going to be a lot of information and probably a few bad jokes too. So for today's agenda, we're going to start off with a brief introduction and overview. And then we're going to talk about a recent HP announcement on the Quality Center obsolescence. We'll discuss why you should upgrade to ALM Quality Center 11 as soon as possible. David will share with us some high-level upgrade strategies. And then we'll get into upgrade preparation techniques, tips, and tricks, as well as discussion of new features and benefits. So your presenters today are, I'm Bob Cruz, President of Checkpoint Technologies. I've actually been a certified instructor on the Quality Center solution since 1998. But the primary speaker, the one with the real brains here, is going to be David Browerman. He's our Senior Engineer and Support Manager, ALM and Quality Center 11 certified, as well as an HP certified instructor. So David, you want to say hello to everybody?
Hello, everybody.
A little bit about Checkpoint Technologies. We are an HP software specialist partner and authorized training partner, as well as an authorized software support partner. So we can handle that first level of support whenever you have any issues with your software. We are also HP ESSN CI certified, so server, storage, and networking. We're also partners with Riverbed, F5, and VMware, as well as QAI. QAI is the Quality Assurance Institute. So we offer training and mentoring on software testing, requirements writing, test case design, everything in the world of quality assurance and software testing. Some unique qualifications that we at Checkpoint Technologies have. We actually were selected by HP to develop a previous version of their Quality Center suite, including Quality Center, Quick Test Pro, and WinRunner, as well as BBT. And we also developed one of their two-day courses, BPT, that's Business Process Testing, for the Automation Engineer. And we were reviewers of HP's Performance Center Suite ASE exam as well. We have a test lab and training center and outsourcing center in Tampa. And as I mentioned earlier, we're actually moving into a new facility, which is over 7,000 square feet. So we are very excited about that. So without any further ado, I do want to encourage everybody to please ask questions as you go. As time permits, I'm going to throw some of your questions out to David. Also, you will have seen our email address, and we'll be posting our email addresses afterwards. So even when the webinar ends, if you have any other questions, please feel free to email us. The recorded webinar will be made available to all attendees. If not late today, then definitely tomorrow. And then all of the questions, David and I are going to go through all of them, answer all of the questions asked, and email all of those out to all attendees. And that does take us a couple of days because typically there are close to 100 questions, if not more. So again, thanks for joining us today. And now I'm going to turn you over to David Browerman. David, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Bob. So every time I hear the announcement Bob makes about being a certified instructor since 1998, I still can't get over that. So. All right, so what we want to start off with today is just the discussion around Quality Center 10 being obsolete, being discontinued. Those are some big words. But HP has announced recently on September 1st that they are no longer going to support version 10. So starting November 1st, you're not even going to be able to buy the software anymore. You're not going to be able to order it, get the information. You're going to have to either move to version 11, which we're going to talk about today. August 31st, some dates coming in the future. There's not going to be any more product support at all where you can call HP or get information on that. And then the last one is going to be self-help. So if you're interested in, you're looking around on the HP website or things like that, trying to find out your own information, that will no longer be available either. So this is definitely coming down the road, so we just want to make everybody aware of it. And we're going to talk about some ways and tips and tricks and things about the upgrade. All right, you definitely don't want to wait, and then we're going to talk about some reasons why. But obviously one reason, no more support. So something comes up, you're not going to have HP, or you're not going to be able to get information on what the issues are. If you currently have an active support contract or maintenance contract on your Quality Center version that you have now, you're entitled to a no-cost upgrade if you go to the same level. So for example, I'm on Enterprise 10, I want to move to QC Enterprise 11. If you end up doing that yourself or doing the upgrade, downloading the software and doing that, no cost on that. If you did want to upgrade to a higher level, so for example, you're on QC 9.2, QC 10 Enterprise, you want to go to the ALM, the full version of 11, you can do that with the slight upcharge. If you end up not wanting to do the upgrade yourself, you'd rather call some experts in, we'd also be happy to talk to you about that. We're also going to go over a number of the enhanced benefits and features today. So I'm going to point out some things to be aware of and how that can benefit your organization, make you more efficient, help you out with that. One thing that we've noticed, or that I go help clients with their upgrades, is that even though they have a current version of Quality Center that may be working for them, or they've got it set up the way they want it, we found that if there is a need to move, like in this case 10 being discontinued, that you want to make sure you have plenty of time to do your planning, to set everything in motion, because that's going to just lead to a smoother upgrade. I can't tell you how many times that waiting till the last minute and then trying to rush through it, things get missed. So I'm going to talk about that as we go. All right, so everybody sit back, get ready, put on your 3D glasses. We're going to do some secret files, some additional information on the upgrade itself, some tips and techniques and things of that nature.
And again, I can't emphasize enough, please feel free to submit any questions that you might have as we go. We want to make this as interactive as possible. Obviously, with webinars, with several hundred people on the line, we can't just open up the phone lines. So again, feel free to submit any questions or comments that you might have.
All right, so some of the high-level upgrade strategies and things that you want to keep in mind at your organizational level is you need to do an environment assessment. So what that means, you need to look at what is your current setup, where Quality Center is installed, or where you want to install it. You may be able to go ahead and do it on a current server, or how you have your configuration, or you may want to take this opportunity to build out a new server, new configurations, put the new software on that. So there's going to be certain standards and minimum configurations and software and things like that that you're going to have to make sure that you're meeting. As far as project backup, so your DBA can help you with most of this at your organization, is you're going to want to back up not only the database itself, but the project repository. So all the files and folders and attachments that come with your project, that all needs to be backed up. And then what ends up happening is that gets restored or placed onto either your new server or another area of your existing server. And then what you're going to do is you're going to basically, I noted in here this dbid.xml file. It's just a configuration file that's going to help you point and do connectivity to where's my project now, what server am I using, where's the location and things like that. So you've got to do your backups. You've also got to then install the new software. So you would install ALM or Enterprise version of 11. You're going to want to configure it, point it to all your new or existing databases, where the project files are stored. And then once you get that set up, you can actually do the individual project upgrades. So there's a verify, repair, and upgrade process that runs out of the site admin side of Quality Center. Each project will be upgraded, and then you would obviously want to make sure that through doing some validation that your information moved over, your settings are still there, and then you would want to apply any patches. There's currently 10 patches out for version 11. You'd want to put the new patches on there just to fix any functionality defects or anything that they found that customers have reported. So that's kind of a high-level strategy of some of the things that you want to do or you want to look out for. Okay. One thing that I definitely want to mention here around the preparation of the upgrade is to map things out before you actually start. Create some sort of checklist, put a project plan in place, get the people that are going to be involved in this together, figure out the responsibilities, who's doing what, timelines, who's going to be involved. The reason why is there's a lot of different pieces that go along with this. If something gets missed, you forget a password, someone thinks they have admin access when they don't, that can, right in the middle of the upgrade, that can delay the information and what you're doing. So if people aren't available or they don't know they're supposed to be doing something, that can cause some delays, and obviously that's not something that we want to do. I would also recommend that if you're going to move at some point, and hopefully sooner rather than later, to version 11, is that you try it out on a sandbox or a testing area. The reason why, it's going to give you an idea of how the process works, what the installation of the software actually looks like, and then you and your team can actually go into the new area, try out some of the new features, look at the capabilities, get people on the same page with how things are going to work. That way when you start on day one and you move everything to version 11 and everybody's ready to go, they have a better idea of what's going on. I would also recommend taking a handful of test projects, or take a couple projects that you either use now or maybe you don't use at all. Move those over to your test area. Take a gauge of how long did it take me to upgrade that individual project, and then based on the size of that project, take a look at your other projects, and then you can do a little calculation on how long things will take. That's going to give you a little bit better idea of your timeline for your production upgrade. All right, if you're on Quality Center 9, in order to get to version 11, you've got to go to Quality Center 9, 2, or 10 as an intermediate step. You're not able to go there directly. If you're on QC 9, there's going to be a specific patch that you can see there, patch 26, that you'll have to be on in order to move that. If you're already on Quality Center 9, 2, you can go directly to 11. Again, there's going to be a specific patch that you're going to need to put onto your system. Quality Center 10 will let you go directly to 11. And again, it's just going to be some patches that you want to make sure that are in place. All right, I'd like to go now and look at some new features and benefits. So
David, let me just interrupt you. So, one of the things I do want to offer to everybody attending today is we've conducted several upgrade assessments in which we'll spend an hour with organizations over the phone, and David will share some of the tips and tricks in greater detail, and he'll be able to answer any questions you might have relative to your environment. So if any of you would like to take advantage of a complimentary 1-hour upgrade assessment, please just let us know. We'll contact you and set that up.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what I also like to do is take a look at, as you provide information about your current environment and how things look, is to make recommendations based on things I've seen out in the industry, what works well, what combinations of servers and application information and versions of different software that tend to work well together and some that don't necessarily work well together, which can definitely help you better understand, where you need to go. All right, so as far as new features and benefits, again, this isn't a laundry list of everything that's new or all the benefits, but a few highlights here. So I'm going to talk more about optimized project repositories as we go. I'm also going to talk about being able to now share graphs on Wiki, SharePoint, or HTML type of pages. Side-by-side clients, you can now have like version 9.2 and version 10 and version 11 in separate browsers on your same client machine. Previously, you tried to do that and you'd get an error, it would kind of freeze up on you. Now, if you need to go and look at, hey, how did something look at an old version versus how does it look in my new version, and you have both of those instances running, you can actually do that on your client machine. As far as requirements, they offer a traceability matrix now. What's nice about that is if you've had to manually put together a traceability matrix in the past for requirements related to other requirements or requirements related to test cases for coverage, the system will now do it for you. So now you can build out a traceability matrix, and it gives you a nice Excel spreadsheet that's cleanly formatted. It gives you all the totals, and it even enables drill down and linking to those items. So that's definitely a nice feature. I'm also going to talk in this presentation about moving requirements up and down in the requirements tree. That's kind of a cool new feature. Test configurations I'm not going to go into, but what that is you're now able to, when you build a test case in your test plan module, you can build other use cases or other flavors of that test case. The nice thing is you have one test to manage in the tree, but you're able to set up different configurations using parameters, and then you're able to run those configurations and execute those in your test lab. So now you can cover different scenarios for your login test case, for example. Maybe you have a super user, a regular user, an admin user, etc. Now you just have a login generic test in the tree, and now you can set up all kinds of different use cases or flavors of that test. So again, another nice enhancement to version 11. The HP Sprinter, I'm going to go ahead and show you in a few minutes and give you some details on that. That's going to be a new manual enhanced test runner that you can do a number of cool things like inject data from your spreadsheet to an application. You can do things like mirror testing to test on multiple machines at the same time. You can even write what we call smart defects and include not only movies of what you were doing, the steps and things you were recording on your screen, but you can annotate and mark up your screenshots. So I'll talk more about that. You don't need admin privileges anymore except for a few things like Excel add-in or Sprinter, things like that. But if you're just doing kind of the regular out-of-the-box Quality Center on your client machine, you don't need admin privileges anymore, so that can definitely be a big help where organizations don't have admin privileges on their machines. And I also have a few slides for project planning and tracking, which is ALM 11 specific. It doesn't include the QC10 or QC11 Enterprise. I'm going to show you how that can help with project management and doing a better job of tracking your releases. All right. There's going to be 4 editions available for version 11. So there's a starter edition, again, for very small teams, limited functionality. There's even a Performance Center edition, so if you're interested in large-scale performance testing, you're doing that type of lab management and kicking off the Performance Center side of things, you can use that. The ALM is that full license where you can do all the cross-project and sharing and templates and sharing entities across projects. And then you obviously have the Enterprise Edition, medium to large releases, where it's going to be one project. You have to do everything in there. You can set up multiple projects, but you can't share data between them. So one excellent new feature is called the Optimized Project Repository. This is going to come with any of the versions of QC. The cool thing about this is it's going to save a lot of space, a lot of file information. So it used to be that every time you saved an attachment or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it was, Quality Center in version 10 and before would save that same document over and over. As many times as you saved it, it would just save it. So that fills up, obviously, database repository space. That doesn't happen anymore. So they've written an algorithm. I'm not going to go through all that. Everybody will be asleep. But it's going to look for duplications and screenshots and documents that are the same. And it's going to basically eliminate anything that's a duplicate. And it's going to really cut down on the size of your repository and the number of files. So it's not really a difference in process. It's just behind the scenes of how things are going to be stored moving forward. You can see here just way too many files in the file system today. So in version 10 and before, you have different tests, attachments, screen prints, whatever you're attaching from a documentation point, it's putting all those documents in there, just way too many files. So what happens now is behind the scenes when you move to version 11, you get this new optimized structure. And you can see here just some feedback from HP's customers, how these customers have cut down not only the number of files that they have, but the size of their repository. So specific guy just picked, customer A here for project 2. They had 8 million files before they moved to version 11. I mean, that's a lot of files, right? After they moved to 11, it knocked it down to 831,000, so an 87% file reduction. Plus, the size of their repository was 32.5 gigs to start with, 11.3 to finish. So, again, from a space and a storage and a footprint perspective, this is going to save just a lot of time and a lot of space and storage in your organization. I mean, back down in the right-hand corner here, it says, this customer said, certainly we were impressed. It seems this feature alone will justify the upgrade to QC11. And this will definitely save time and space and footprint in your organization.
So we can't hear you, but we know this is where you're all saying, ooh, ah.
All right. So the optimized repository, excellent feature. One other thing that I can definitely say here as far as the publishing and integrating of graphs and scorecards on project pages with the SharePoint, had a lot of feedback, a lot of great feedback from customers saying this is a great feature. What you're able to do now is, as you build out your graphs and save them in Quality Center version 11, you can now share those on HTML pages. You see an example here of a scorecard. The scorecard is specific to the project planning and tracking side of it, which I'll show you is an ALM license feature. but again, it can apply to graphs as well. So in this screenshot here, you can see version 11. What I've done is I've saved and built a graph inside of my dashboard module, and I saved it in the analysis view. So that's where you're going to save your graphs and reports and things like that. It's pretty easy to share it out to a Wiki SharePoint HTML type of page. You basically just right-click the graph, and you select the Share Analysis item, which I have highlighted here. Then you can decide, how do I want to share that? So when I put this out on those pages, do I want it to be an authentication required, meaning the person has to have a Quality Center login to be able to see the graph, or do I just want to make it a public URL? Do I want just anybody that clicks on the URL or pastes it into their browser or clicks on it on my project page to see it? You can decide which way you want to do it, if you want to protect it from certain people not seeing it, things like that. All right. So you'll notice on the left-hand side here, this is what before you actually were able to see the graph, you would have to use your login name and password to sign in. The graph would then show up. Or on the right-hand side, you'll see exactly what the graph looks like. For example, it was a public graph. The nice thing about these graphs is they are dynamic. They're not static, so meaning as your information in Quality Center changes, the graph will change the next time it's refreshed, the next time you click on the link. You don't have to keep going into your project pages or wherever you're sharing this out. You don't have to keep going in and updating it. It's going to do it for you. It does not consume a license if you just open the graph. Where it will consume a license, if down at the bottom of the right-hand side it says Go to Graph and ALM, you click that, then that's going to take you inside a Quality Center, and someone would have to have a license to see that. So you're now able to share these graphs and scorecards, if you had ALM, out with your peers and your project pages.
And I know, this is an area also where we're getting a lot of great feedback from our customers and clients, really appreciating this new functionality, and they find it just very beneficial to their organization.
All right. So another simple change that they made, but this has got great feedback as well, is you may have had some pain points for people in your organizations around the requirements module and putting requirements into the requirements tree, and then forgetting that you had a requirement or needing to add an additional one that you didn't have to start with or whatever that was, and you were not able to move the requirements in a certain order. The only way you could move them and get them in a certain order was to come up with a funny naming convention or put in a 1.1 or 1.2 or letter A, B, C in front of them to sort in that certain order. Well, that's no longer the case anymore. So what they've done is they've added these arrows on your menu, and now you can just highlight your requirement that you want to move. You can select the arrow to go up and down in your tree, and then you can put the requirement wherever you want. So you don't have to come up with those funny naming conventions or the names anymore. You can move them wherever you want. Right, so I'm going to move to HP Sprinter. So Sprinter is going to be available in both the Enterprise and the ALM version. This is going to help manual testers. So if you're on the phone, you're a manual tester, and you're thinking, nobody ever thinks about me. They come up with all these cool automated tools to help them be faster, but I never get any help. Well, here's your thing. So Sprinter is going to be for manual test cases, and it's going to help you be more efficient. So how is it going to do that? So it's going to help you with, if you take screenshots of your tests, you need to send something to your developer friend or your friends and neighbors, and you want to show them the information. You can mark those up with notes and arrows and things of what's going on your screenshot. You can capture movies, so you can send those over to other people to see exactly what you were doing on your system. You can even record and run macros. So if you have an application or something you need to put data in, you can record the macro, play it back later so you don't have to keep putting the data in over and over. You can do what's called data injection, which we're going to talk about, is putting data from a spreadsheet and then associating that data and putting it into your application. So it will plug the data in for you, saving yourself time and making sure things are accurate. You can also include, when you write defects, you can include both the steps that you were taking and the user actions. So user actions being, what was I doing on my system? What was I clicking on? What button was I pressing? Things like that. That can all be included in your defect. Right? So what you'll notice again, Quality Center ALM, the enterprise version of version 11 is going to be available. It's not going to be available Starter or Performance Center. So the nice thing about Sprinter is it's going to put tabs over top of your application. So whether it's a desktop application, a web page, or whatever you're working on, you're going to have everything that you need to execute your test right on top of your application. And these tabs, you notice, can get smaller and kind of contract, or they can expand out. But you don't even need Quality Center open. This will connect to Quality Center. You're going to tell it what project to connect to. You don't have to toggle back and forth anymore to Quality Center to see what the name of the step was. Maybe you forgot what the step said to do. You don't have to do that. Everything is going to be laid out right in front of you. So you'll notice up on the top left where the Tools menu is, you can see the camera, so I can take screenshots there. I can open up and annotate my screenshots. I can submit defects directly from there. The middle section under Run Control, this is where I can see what my test is. I can start and stop my runs. I can pass and fail things. I can see how many steps and actions are going on. The upper right tab for macros, that's where I can record, play back, and manage all my macros that I've recorded on my application. Bottom right for data injection. So if you've associated a spreadsheet, what you'll see here is the columns and the rows basically replicating what you had on your spreadsheet. You're going to be able to click a row there and inject the data right into the fields on your application. And then the bottom left is where all your steps will be. So I can see not only the name of my step, what the step's saying to do, expected results, and I can also put in the pass and fail or wasn't complete. I can add my screenshots and things like that. So everything I need to do from a test execution point of view, I will be able to do here, and then all this will be saved back into the Quality Center project wherever I've told it to save it to. So again, a great feature. I don't have to toggle back and forth or even have Quality Center open.
So David, if I can interrupt just for one moment here, I actually have a great question here in regards to the shared analysis items that you were talking about a moment ago.
Okay.
And you had indicated, excuse me, that you did not have to be logged in, thus using a license. So in that situation, how do you refresh the graph or the shared analysis item?
So you can, so the data in the graph itself will be refreshed from the Quality Center application server. So as you save or refresh inside of Quality Center, what will happen is it's going to update the graph, and then what will happen from you as a client or a user, when you either click on the URL again or you refresh the page, that will actually dynamically update from the Quality Center server. So what you would need to do is if you had it up on your screen, and you came back an hour later and you wanted to see if there was any updates, you could just refresh the browser. That would make the changes. Or if you re-click the link, if it was in an email or something, as soon as you re-clicked it and it opened, it would refresh it.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right, so the automatic data injection, so taking data from a spreadsheet and moving it to your application, definitely going to help for items that are very tedious. If you have customer forms or web pages that there's a lot of data, you want to make sure you're 100% accurate for auditing purposes or things like that. This is going to save the tester from having to type that information in every single time. All right. So basically what you'll do is when you save your spreadsheet and you associate it to your Sprinter application here, what you'll see is as I opened up the data injection here in the bottom right, what I'm trying to do is inject some data from my passenger on this particular application. And all I do is highlight the row, click that little data injection button, and it's going to float the data right from my spreadsheet or the replication of my fields directly into this field. So I do not have to type it. I don't have to worry about fat fingering anything or messing anything up. It puts the data directly into my application. That's called data injection. I can also set up defects right from Sprinter. So I can add what's called a smart defect. That's going to allow me to include the movies. It's going to allow me to include the user actions and things that I'm interacting with on my application. So that's a smart defect. You can also click just a regular new defect. So that's, again, that's going to save right into Quality Center, just like you were in Quality Center and you'd open it up there. You can even add a defect reminder. So maybe the step that failed doesn't cause you to have to stop your test, or maybe you don't want to write a defect right now for whatever reason. You want to remind yourself to do it later. Perfectly fine. Add yourself a defect reminder. Put a note in there of write this defect before you finish the test or before you go home for the day or vacation. You can do that. On the right-hand side, you'll notice on the Smart Defect settings, I can include my steps. You can even preview what are my test steps going to look like. Do I want to do all the ones I've already done? Do I want to include every step in my defect? Do I want to include some customized steps, whatever the case may be? You can decide what steps you want to include. You can also include your user actions. So part of that smart defect is if I'm clicking on a button, I'm pressing go, I'm selecting a menu item, all that information can be included inside of your defect. Think how that's going to help from the benefit side of, my developer now knows exactly what I was clicking on, what field I was in, what button I was pressing, things like that. They're going to be able to follow through and recreate things much easier instead of calling you up and saying, you know what, I don't know what you were doing when you wrote this defect. I don't know what buttons you were clicking and things like that. It's going to save a lot of time and effort. Many testers have called me and said, you know what, once we finally got Sprinter put in here, I started including, movies and user actions and all my steps and things like that, and it saves a lot of time from the development side. You can also mark up those screenshots that you include in your defects. So you've got a bunch of annotation tools around, putting text boxes in there, arrows, write a funny little message to somebody, whatever you want. But you can call out and highlight the things that are wrong. My button's not enabled. This field's in the wrong place. This screen didn't show up. Again, it's going to help with ambiguity of people not knowing what you were doing, what's wrong with, the test case that you were doing. This is going to call things out and make it obvious of, hey, this wasn't working correctly or this is what needs to be done. You can also then include this as part of your smart defect and then add it to Quality Center, and this exact screenshot or all the markups will show in the defect itself. From the mirror testing perspective, this is an excellent feature to save yourself time and your team time. So how is that going to do that? I can now, if I'm doing a test case on my primary client machine here, I can also run that same test case basically simultaneously on up to 5 other machines. So for example, I have different browsers. I'm doing Internet Explorer 6 on this machine. I have 7, 8, and 9 on other lab machines. Maybe I'm testing Windows Vista on my machine, but I also want to test Windows 7, Windows XP, whatever the case may be. I'm going to be able to basically connect by IP remote desktop to those other machines, and I'm going to be able to execute my test case on my machine while it's basically simultaneously running it on those other machines. So think about not having to go to your lab machine or another machine and redoing this entire test case over and over. You're going to be able to do it simultaneously. The only caveat here is you've got to install the Sprinter add-in and the agent, which runs in the background on those other machines. You've got to hook up by IP or remote desktop to them. And then basically what will happen is you'll be able to see all the information right on top of your machine. So you'll notice here that you can see your primary machine, your Firefox, and your Windows 7 or whatever those other configurations were. It's going to tell you, how many steps and how many actions you're doing. These are all green, meaning we're all in the same place and that there's been no problems. If I need to see what my other machine's desktop looks like, I can actually open up and see what that other machine is doing. Maybe the step failed. Maybe there was a problem. I could reset it. I could skip the step on those other machines. So there's a lot of things I can do, but the nice thing is it saves me a lot of time and effort from having to replicate the same test on other machines.
And David, on a lot of these new features that you're discussing, are they all available in both ALM and Quality Center 11?
In most cases, the ones that I say are ALM specific. Those are ALM specific. Everything else, like Sprinter and all that, is going to be enterprise as well. So unless I say it's only specific to ALM 11, it's going to be available in the other ones.
So Mirror is definitely available
Yes.
in Quality Center 11.
Yes.
And then I have another great question in which I know you're very familiar, and that's in regard to the Agile Accelerator. So does ALM come with a way to manage Agile project testing, such as sprints, burn downs, etc., or does it have to be integrated with HP Agile Accelerator tool? And then the million-dollar question, is the integration easy?
So a lot of questions, but basically HP has an Agile Accelerator project that you import into Quality Center or ALM version 11. And what that does is it gives you all the terminology and all the information around the burn-ups and the burn-downs and the sprints and the user stories and all the points. But what they've done is they've taken the project and they've put it into an Agile, with the Agile methodology. I've seen some companies try to just kind of build their own hybrid type of project. The problem with that is that takes a lot of customization, a lot of programming to try to get the fields and things changed to the Agile terminology. What I would recommend is going and getting the from HP the Agile Accelerator project. It's a free project. What it does is when you import it in, it gives you all those fields and all those values. It has a limited subset of some of the reports that you can actually generate out of that. But what you can do is try it out and see if that works for you or if you like it.
And that's for the basic.
The basic, which is free. And then if you're interested in the advanced one, that will be the one that has all the burn ups and burn downs and all the different charts and all the taking the defect and moving it over to a user story and all that. That's the advanced side. But what I would recommend is definitely going for the basic one to start with. Take a look at it, see how that looks, and then move on to the advanced.
And that's something where if you have further questions, let us know. I mean, David actually has experience and expertise in integrating the Agile Accelerator. So those are some questions that we can answer in greater detail.
Definitely. All right, so this part here on the project planning and tracking, this is going to be ALM specific. So you're not going to see it in the enterprise, performance, or starter. What project planning and tracking is it's going to be in the management module under the releases area. And this is going to really help your organization with tracking your life cycle, your readiness of your application, because it's going to allow you to put goals and metrics and KPIs, performance indicators around my releases. So how does it work? Once you build out your releases and cycles, you're able to do a couple different things here. You're able to add release scope and milestones. You can put KPIs or key performance indicators to help measure various goals and to see kind of where you're at and where you're falling short possibly. You can also analyze your progress using a Gantt chart or a master plan is what they call it in here. And then you can also build out scorecards and graphs to see how are we meeting our goals, how are we doing on our releases. So again, this is going to be specific to the ALM 11 license. Notice on the left-hand side I've got the management module open and the releases area highlighted. On the right-hand side, you're going to see the first part is what we call the release scope. So this is going to allow you to get in more detail in your releases. So currently, if you use the releases and cycles functionality, there's going to be some limited things you can do. So I can associate, requirements back to releases and cycles. I can, do some test execution from the test lab and see some numbers. But it doesn't really give me the full picture of what are we doing in our release. What is the scope of everything we need to work on as an organization to get this release or this code moved to production. So this release scope tab up here is going to allow us to build out scope items, meaning, what new functionality do I have? What changes do I have to my system that I want to make sure we implement and get to production? So for example, there's an online booking service. We've added a new customer registration. We've added a new web page. These are the things that we want to measure and make sure that we implement as part of our release. And then down towards the bottom right, you're going to be able to associate the entities, meaning requirements, test cases, the test sets from an execution perspective, and the defects. What are all the things that we need to work on from an entity level and associate back to our new web page, our new customer portal, or our booking service? So now you're able to get very granular on what are we doing as a scope, or what are all the things we need to make sure from a release level we're doing. And then we're able to associate all the requirements and entities that we need to work on. So you've got much more a deep dive and an integration around, what are we trying to do. So it's definitely, you can see it just at a much deeper level. So once you set up your release scope of all the things that you want to do, that new page, that new functionality, you can set up milestones now. So you might have a milestone to launch the new application. You might have a milestone that you want to implement to production. There's certain goals and things that you want to measure along the timeline to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're where we need to be. So you're now able to add specific milestones to that particular release and those scope items to better understand, hey, do we need more people? Are we on time? Are we ahead of schedule? Things like that to measure those actual milestones. And then once you get the milestones put together, you can start building out KPIs, and you can use this Gantt chart to see where are we at in the process. So this gives you kind of that project management feel. You can bring in your project management office. You can gather other people in your organization to get a better idea of, how are we doing? Where do we need to go? Do we need more people? Or, do we have to maybe cut some of the release out? You can now see from this interface here that each milestone or each thing that we want to measure, where are we at and what's the kind of the cutoff point.
And who among us doesn't love a good Gantt chart? Seriously.
All right. All right, so once you've set up your scope, your milestones, you're looking at your timelines and things like that, you're going to want to set up or use some of the KPI, the key performance indicators that come with the tool already out of the box. You're going to want to be able to measure, what's our progress? How are we doing? So what I've shown here is I've built a scorecard for a particular release because I want to see for my new self-service, my new customer registration, my new booking service, how are we doing with moving to production? How are we doing with that launch? Where are we at? So down here from like the web portal integration on the right-hand side, you'll see how many active defects there are for each milestone, how many past tests do we have, how many tests did we execute, and then you can even measure things like defects. How are we doing with defects? Do we have severe defects? And then take that information and get back to your organization to figure out how we're doing. So these scorecards are great because once you build these out, share those with your team members. You can also share those out on those Wiki, SharePoint, and other types of pages in your organization. All right, so remember, the project planning and tracking piece is going to be ALM specific. All right, so that's going to be a feature that if you get the ALM licenses, that's going to be the cross-project reporting, the sharing of requirements and entities, and the project planning and tracking to kind of bring everything together for your testing, your QA, your life cycle together so your whole organization has the information.
So, please feel free to submit any other questions. We're doing fine on time right now. Even after the webinar ends, please feel free to email us. David is showing our contact information there again. And we will be more than happy to answer your questions. If you would like a detailed demo, we'll be happy to do that.
We've actually included as part of this slide deck, we'll send it out in PDF for anyone that requests it. There's actually additional slides in here that we didn't talk about today for lining up each version of Quality Center 11 or ALM, and it tells you all the features that are available in each one. So you've got a chart so you can go down and see, hey, what does my organization need to do? Which version of Quality Center or ALM 11 would best benefit me?
And one of the questions we've actually had it asked a couple of times, and it would take us a bit of time to answer it verbally. But the question is whether or not both Quality Center and Performance Center can be installed on the same servers, and whether or not there are any known issues. So rather than answer that question verbally, there are actually a lot of different variables that must be considered. So we are going to answer that question in great detail and type it up in the question log that we will be sending to all attendees. So I don't want you to think that we're leaving that off. We just want to be respectful of the 1 hour time that you've got. Another question here, David, follow-up question on Agile. Do you know if ALM 11.0 integrates with Rally or Jira? And those are some tools that are being used by this organization's Agile development team.
Yeah, there's some different plugins and adapters that are available for ALM and Quality Center 11. So the great thing about Quality Center is that there's an API, there's an interface that allows you to, if there's not something that's already built or out of the box or available in the industry, or there's a lot of plugins and things that come right with Quality Center. Even if there's not a specific plugin for a tool, those interfaces and things can be built out. So yes, they do integrate with those type of tools, but again, even if it doesn't, or there's one that you have that's a homegrown type of application, in most cases there's an interface or something that can be built as a plugin.
And then there's another question here about the integration with functional testing, Quick Test Pro, and the other tools. So in regards to Quick Test Pro, functional testing, unified functional testing, ALM and Quality Center still have the same great tight integration. So you can certainly store your automated test still within your test lab, and you can still, in your test plan, and then you can still schedule and execute them from the test lab. so it still has that same tight integration. David, anything else to add on the integration in regards to that?
I mean, I think the main thing there is, is having a single point of maintenance, for your test. If you have, test resources and data tables and, function libraries and all that, is, if you're storing that, those in Quality Center in what we call the test resources module, as you make the change in there, you update it and you have the integration and the two tools are talking to each other. You've got kind of that single point of maintenance that if those data tables or items are shared between other tests and things like that, you've got that single point of maintenance and it propagates out to whatever it needs to do. So yeah, it has great integration between Quick Test Professional or Functional Test and Quality Center version 11.
Great. And then also one of the things just before we start to wrap things up, I mentioned earlier about the complimentary upgrade assessment call that we'll be more than happy to conduct with your organization. Just send me an email and we'll be happy to set that up. Also, be on the lookout for an invitation to join us to our next webinar, which will be in regard to upgrading to Performance Center 11.5. So we anticipate doing that in early December, if not sooner, but probably early December. So that is going to conclude the webinar for today. I'd like to thank everybody very much for joining us. David, any last words of wisdom?
Just do lots of planning and making sure you give yourself plenty of time for the upgrade. It would definitely go more smoothly.
So again, I'm going to end the call now, but we're going to leave the webinar going in case you'd like to type in some additional questions. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great day.
Take care.